For a long time, I didn't want to write a book.
You hear that? That's the story I just wrote. Yes, I know we had a bargain. I just said I'd write it. I didn't say I wouldn't tear it up.
She was a marvelous talker. She could have just done it right into a tape recorder. She did not need me. She did not need anybody.
Yes, I got the interview all right, but I've got some more important news. Yeah, perhaps you better get a pencil and take it down.
Wherever women are smarter than men, Rosalind Russell should be twinkling somewhere in the heavens. I mean, she was so much a pioneer. She set a kind of high standard for sophisticated, knowing comedy.
What are they? Well, I take 2 cans of tuna fish and put them through the meat grinder, then add clam juice and peanut butter. It's a recipe I cut out of the Ladies' Home Journal. These others are just plain jack cheese and chutney.
Everybody will be here. The vice president,
I was around during what film historians like to call Hollywood's golden days. And there seems to be considerable interest in hearing from a country that doesn't exist anymore.
And her companion's name is Lani.
That was a special time in America, and I think those of us who sat in darkened movie theaters in small towns across the country saw those big stars in a way you don't anymore, because they're so familiar now. They were not then. They kept their role as a star.
That's the old life. Paris is the new. When do we start living it?
You know, no one ever wore clothes better than she did. No one could sling sexual banter better than she did. No one could walk down a staircase better than she did in a gold lame pajamas.
Oh, Alan, darling, I'm so glad to see Edna. I called you yesterday. Where are you?
Hello, May.
Hello, darling. I'll be with you in just a minute. Vladimir.
When she walked by, she swept by. You know, and she didn't apologize for her being. She was one of a kind. She was a star. She was in the old-fashioned meaning of the word. And I admired that.
She was respected by very fine actors and actresses. What she did in the certain kind of film that she did, I don't think anyone touched her.
An actor who endures for any number of years in this industry has been fortunate. And to endure more or less on your own terms, as I have, is to have been more fortunate than most. I had known there was something more out there, and I was anxious to know what that something might be. What I wanted was the theater.
I think my mother got into acting in the first place because she was a ham as a child. You know, one of 7 children. I think perhaps it was a way for her to get some attention in a very crowded household.
The need to be plucked out of the crowd, to be recognized, applauded, is surely why I wound up in the theater.
Oh, my Lord, was she a ham? She was not exactly an exhibitionist, but she was always on. She was always performing, and the venue didn't make any difference. It could be a playground.
Becoming an actress was not something that my mother's parents were in favor of initially. Actresses in those days were considered, particularly by Irish Catholic families from Waterbury, Connecticut, were considered somewhat disreputable. She was a very strong-willed person, and she persisted in pursuing this career.
I finally had an inspiration. I told my mother I wanted to teach speech. We all knew about my good, loud voice.
Rosalind told her mother that by going to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, she would be qualified to teach speech. And that's all the mother had to hear, you know. You'll have something stable to fall back on. Well, Rosalind never had to teach.
What if you just think you're an actor, and you aren't one?
Rosalind Russell realized fairly early on that she was, you know, not a glamour girl. She was good looking, but she never played, you know, dewy, soft, malleable maidens.
From 1929 till 1933, she performed in stock companies. and what we call the subway circuit. You know, you should go to Philadelphia, to Washington. It extended beyond New York, but they referred to it as the subway circuit.
The stock company was marvelous training for an actor. I got to handle leads of every description.
On the stage, you had to play to the last person in the audience. You had to be big. You had to be loud. There weren't microphones back then on the stage, so you had to be a little larger than life to play several hundred feet to the back row.